Come out to Hanahan, where preseason baseball practice kicking off just last week, and you can bet nobody was more excited to be back on the field than Hawks junior pitcher Brock Borton. A year ago, Borton's family and doctors were hoping he would just make a recovery enough to live a normal life going forward. But for Borton, who had to spend weeks in a medically induced coma because of a medical issue, you can bet that getting back on the field was always in his plans. Summer Hector has more.
A year ago, Brock Borton was fighting for his life in the hospital. Nobody, not even his doctors, knew if he was going to survive, let alone be able to step onto a baseball field again.
Well, with what I was being told, I was not really faithful in thinking I was going to come back like the same or better.
I would go home and I would unfortunately tell my wife, I don't think this kid's going to make it, multiple times. And every time we'd figure out a way to get him through it as a team.
But after winning the fight for his life and thanks to an incredible team at MUSC, Brock is back playing baseball on the varsity team at Hanahan High School and ready to deal from the mound again. Brock's neurosurgeon Ramin Eskandari says what started as a sinus infection quickly led to an intracranial infection.
He doesn't remember this. He had 11 neurosurgical procedures. He didn't have just one surgery. He was in the hospital in an induced coma for several weeks with brain pressures that would have killed pretty much anybody.
It's wild to think about because that's not something normally like someone goes through.
But at one point he had half his skull removed because his brain pressure was so high that he would have died. And unfortunately with infection you can't really put that back on. So he actually has a synthetic half of his skull.
Dr. Eskandari says the main reason that Brock was able to survive and return to his sport in just a year is because he never had a stroke. But even as Brock was waking up from his induced coma, they weren't sure how long the recovery process was going to be.
Well, it was a little bit fuzzy at first, but whenever I was kind of like processing, I was more worried about what I was going to turn out like in mostly baseball because that's what I was mostly worried about. My dad actually he converted our office into a weight room for me. So I got a bunch of weights and stuff and just started working, I guess.
In this video, Brock pitching for the Hawks in his first inter-squad scrimmage back with the team.
I can't even describe, it's amazing. It felt so good to get back on the mound and back with my teammates.
He's basically back where he was. He pitched the other night. He was throwing about 80 miles an hour, which is unbelievable that he goes 6 months out of all this stuff that happened to him, and he's able to do all the things he's doing right now. It's really crazy.
The Hanahan baseball season officially starts on March 1st, and as Brock Borton returns to the field, he hopes his story can be an inspiration.
I hope what it means or can teach people, just you got to stay faithful.
In Hanahan, I'm Summer Hector, Live 5 Sports.